Hey, welcome to the Healthy Enterprise Podcast. If you're here for another listen, thank you for coming back. I appreciate it. And if you're here for the first time, well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm going to be speaking with John Marvin. He's a seasoned executive leader with over 3 decades of experience helping individuals and organizations unlock their full potential. As a former president and CEO of Texas State Optical, John led one of the largest networks of independent practices in the U.S., steering it through industry change with vision and a commitment to people-first leadership. John's career centered intentional leadership on communications and mindset mastery through mentorships, partnerships, or simply meaningful conversations. He empowers others to see beyond self-imposed limits and to step into their bigger story. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I hope you are too. So let's meet John Marvin. John, thank you for joining me today on this episode. I really appreciate you taking the time to have a chat.
Heath, I really appreciate the invitation. I've been looking forward to it. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, why don't we start with, giving listeners a bit of an introduction to yourself and a little bit about your professional career.
Well, I was raised in western Kansas and small town. My dad was the country doctor, so to speak, of that small town, and family practitioner. And so I kind of grew up in a culture of private practice, healthcare private practice, and but I knew I didn't want to be a doctor.
Right.
But I kind of understood the whole dynamic in it. My mother was the office manager for him, and it was a very busy practice. But when I went to school, I decided that I really wanted to go into business and, in particularly, marketing. There was just something that fascinated me about understanding consumers and how to move products from manufacturing into the homes of consumers. And so that became really my interest at first, but my passion later, and particularly understanding consumers and consumer behavior. And it was because of that I ended up in a kind of starting a boutique business in the early 90s. I'd worked in eye care and ophthalmology up until that point, but I decided to go ahead and start this marketing management group that was the purpose of which was to do consumer research, understand consumers, and then develop marketing strategies for companies and clients. And while I had a pretty good background in healthcare related ophthalmology and family medicine, I ended up what I used to say is I specialize in a process, not an industry.
Right.
And so that led me into, I did some work for the Houston Astros, did some
Oh, wow.
consumer research for them, a couple of hospitals in Houston. I live in Houston, and hospitality, some restaurants. But I also did a big study for a company called Texas State Optical. It was a 2-year study. We did a couple of thousand interviews of people, both their current customers and prospective customers, and then did about 60 focus groups testing different messagings and things like that. And when you do a study like that, you become pretty intimately familiar with both their consumers, but
Yeah.
also the company itself and where they are in the marketplace and so forth. And it was that introduced me to the franchisees of Texas State Optical,
Mm-hmm.
and who at the time was having a conflict with the franchisor, which is not uncommon in the franchise business, but this one had a little more intensity than normal. And ultimately, they asked me if I would help them formulate a kind of a franchise association centered around how to best market and advertise the business as a whole. The impasse with franchisor was that the franchisor was not providing any of that. And
Right.
so I got invited to do that. And I helped them stand up the franchise association and then kind of served as a quasi executive director as a client. They were a client. I wasn't a full time thing for me.
Right.
Then in the late '90s, they decided that they wanted to purchase the franchisor and asked me to help be involved in that, and I did. I helped them negotiate that acquisition, and kind of 2/3 of the way through, they asked me if I would be interested in coming on as the new president of the company.
Wow.
And on one hand, it was very intriguing because it was kind of the ultimate fixer-upper. It had a lot of potential to it that wasn't being developed. But at the other hand, that decision made I was going to devote myself 100% to this one industry.
Right.
And so it took me about 90 days and thinking it through and so forth, and finally decided to go ahead and take them up. I guess I was lured to the appeal that this would be a fixer-upper, that I could really make a difference maybe in helping to establish. At the time, there was about 100 locations, but the average age was in the upper 50s.
Mm.
The average revenue per location was half of its potential. And I just thought, if somebody doesn't do something, then this thing will just age out.
Right.
These guys will die because they weren't growing. They hadn't brought anything new. And so I decided to do that. And we started off in the early 2000. We closed on it in 2001. I became president of the new company, the acquisition company, in the fall of 2000, and then we closed on the acquisition in the summer of 2001.
Mm.
And about 2003, we had our first opportunity for a new location, and we had structured it as a member-owned cooperative,
Mm.
so that all the locations were owners, and there was a sense of equity in that.
Right.
And there also was some elements to it. First of all, co-ops are designed to not be profit. They're not for-profit enterprises.
Right.
Co-ops are intended to collect money, reinvest, and
Right.
so that took away some of the intimidation from new doctors, because it was like, well, we're not trying to make money on you. We're trying to help you.
Right.
And so that was an important element. It also had a negative to it that we found out a few years later, in our inability to strategize and change the business model. I can get into that in a minute. But
Right.
so we started off, and after 22, 23 years, we had opened up like 87 brand new locations throughout
Wow.
Texas, and changed the average age to low 40s,
Really?
just
Wow.
because we brought it down, and by doing that kind of ensured its future as a
Right.
company. And um, and then it was in the late 2000 teens, 2018, 19, that optometry began going through what other areas of healthcare did, and that's the consolidation through private equity investment. And by the end of last year, we were down to less than 70 locations.
Oh wow.
And because all of the strong flagship type of locations had been purchased by consolidators, that and along with the revenue and the number of locations went the leadership
Right.
of the company. And so I had, beginning when this started in the 2019 is when it really hit Texas. We started putting together plans saying, here's how we deal with this. And there was just this refusal to do so because it meant changing our business model.
Mm-hmm.
And my view at that point was, if we don't, we're not going to exist, because the model we're on worked great in the early 2000s. But in the face of the changes in this industry and the market, it won't exist. It won't work. And but there was a real refusal by these very same member-owned companies, these
Yeah.
doctors that were part of it. There was a refusal to accept that, and so we the last 5 years we've saw either further decline, and then, like I said, we were down to less than 70, and then we've lost. Looks like this year the organization's going to lose another 30 locations, and if you don't change, then it's just going to end up being Montgomery Wards.
Right.
People remember it from childhood and
Yep.
nostalgia, but
It's
it's not
nostalgic, but
relevant.
that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So in faced with the fact that there wasn't a will to make that change, I felt like there's nothing I can do.
Right.
And so I decided after 25 years to submit my resignation, and they're entitled. It's their company. So
Yeah.
they're entitled to do that. And I don't have any bad feelings. I had a great time and enjoyed it. And I think a lot of the industry, I love private practice, but just because I love it doesn't mean, doesn't mean it's going to survive and be the model.
It was just time
Yeah,
for
it's
change
just,
for you.
it's time
Yeah.
for change for me. So that did that. And June 30th was my last day.
Hey,
And
well,
so now I'm on a,
congratulations.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
thank you very much. So that's kind of a long story, but that's it.
I'm just yeah, so I mean that whole story was all about change. I mean, that's really what you did for 25
Hmm.
years is help guide change for them,
Hmm.
right from the get-go. So, like what, in that experience for you, like what was some of the biggest challenges that you encountered? I mean, coming from where you had come from and now you're the president of this organization. What was some of your biggest challenges that you faced?
Well, I think that, there were several, but I think that I could start with a hierarchy and say the biggest challenge, and I don't think it was unique to TSO. I think it's a part of the challenge of any organization like ours, and certainly an organization of small business, and that is dealing with mindset of
Hmm.
the members that we work with, because
Mm-hmm.
there there is a mindset of scarcity, and meaning that there's a real fear of loss.
Mm.
And so when your whole perspective is, I don't want to make any big decisions because they might be wrong, it paralyzes you.
Yeah.
And in every business, every industry goes through change. And the reason they go through change is because the consumers change.
Mm-hmm.
The preference of consumers change.
Yeah, the attitudes change and
Attitudes
values
change.
change and everything. Yeah.
Society changes culture, and there are people today that haven't been in a grocery store in 5 years because they learned they could order online or have DoorDash bring them food, and that didn't happen in 2019.
No.
And that's just a reality. I'm not judging whether it's a good thing or a bad
Yeah.
thing. It's just a reality. And when the
Mm-hmm.
consumer changes, the business model has to change. And if you are fearful of change, then it puts you in a very dangerous spot as a business operator. So the biggest challenge was constantly dealing with a mindset that uh, was kind of risk averse,
Mm.
and so uh, you can there's a it takes a lot of energy and a lot of time, because you're dealing with an organization of 100 and more than 100 locations,
Right.
and trying to manage that, and through a board of directors that are elected by the members, then the hope is that the directors themselves take that responsibility on,
Mm-hmm.
to understand that while it might be uncomfortable, then there's a need for some recognition of reality here. And
Yeah.
otherwise, we're going to end up not being able to make decisions because they'll be made for us. And so that was probably the biggest challenge. But that filters down into little things as to whether or not we're going to offer products online, e-commerce.
Right.
Is that
Right.
going to be a big thing for us? And so it permeates a lot of the operational issues, but from a strategic area, it really paralyzes your ability to adjust and take advantage of the changes as
Right.
opposed to being hurt by them.
Right. And I
Mhm.
mean, there's equal risk to not changing as opposed to
Absolutely.
changing. There's just as much risk. It's just as more comfortable not to change
Yeah.
because,
And
I'm staying in my comfort zone. I can stay here. It's less
uh
risky because it feels less risky because
hmm
it doesn't put the individual into a state of shock, so to speak, because they
yeah,
actually have to move into their out of discomfort into discomfort, right?
it is. It's like the guy after his third heart attack won't quit smoking and still eats bad and won't exercise. I mean, it's not that they don't realize the reality of that. It's just it's more comfortable just to keep doing what I've always done.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a human behavior issue. What I've tried to do to deal with that is to always put the voice of the consumer in the middle of the discussion
Right.
through ongoing research. That was my background, and
Right, their
so
background. That's what marketing
so
is. Yes,
and
exactly.
so I
Yeah.
would always every 2 to 3 years we would do extensive study with consumers so that we could always bring that voice into the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And if for no other reason, giving that board the full advantage of that reality. And what they did with it ultimately is up to them.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, you said all the franchise operators became owners at
That's
some
right.
point. So they all owned their locations, which is why they were able
What,
to actually sell
well,
them.
we turned the business from a franchise operation into a brand license company,
Oh, okay, right.
and then made every licensee a shareholder in the corporation. So as a shareholder,
Ah, okay.
each doctor
Yeah,
had two relationships. One
right,
is an owner of the company, and the other was a customer of the company.
right,
And so they elected their own board members to
right,
serve at the board level as a
right.
shareholder.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
And yeah, it was an interesting dynamic. It had a
Yeah,
lot of real positives to it, a lot of
sure.
positives, but it also has an ultimate accountability to it.
Yeah.
And an accountability at a corporate level that transcends the accountability of their individual business, which they were, uh, you know, primary in, of course, and was their primary focus. And but eventually, you've got dilemmas of saying, I need to make a decision at the corporation level, the corporate level, and it may or may not be in line with the interest of the individual office member.
Hmm.
So there's a conflict in that becomes more challenging when the marketplace itself is in disruption.
Right. And then on top of that, smack dab in the middle of it is a pandemic.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then on top of that, you have all these other major changes in the digital space and
hmm
online marketing, online selling,
Yep,
buying.
yep.
Like it was an incredible amount of change globally, for on top of just
hmm
changing on an internal way, it was a tremendous amount of change over that last 5 6 years.
And the profession itself has gone through some radical change in that today, more than 8 out of 10 young optometrists coming out of optometry school are females,
Really?
have
Wow.
a totally different um, kind of motivation and objective
Hmm.
for being an optometrist
Hmm.
versus the 80s and 70s, where it was 9 out of 10 were men
Mm-hmm.
that
Interesting.
embraced it as an entrepreneurial opportunity. Today, it's not viewed as that. There's very little interest in private practice ownership.
Really
Yeah, and
interesting. Huh.
it's viewed as an employment opportunity, and not even a full time employment opportunity. It's viewed as a great flexible part time
Right.
opportunity. And
Right.
so
Okay.
when you've got those kind of when your primary provider in the delivery of eye care no longer has an interest in the ownership of the practice itself, but but is more interested in it being flexible, and I don't have to work 6 days a week, and I can work 3 days a week and still make a really good income.
Income. Yeah.
Yeah, it begins to look a lot like pharmacy.
Right. Interesting. Wow.
Yeah,
And I mean, I guess that's probably conducive to to younger generations who are, deciding that they want their work lives to look different than previous generations, right?
absolutely. One of the biggest, I did a lot of work with the universities, the schools of optometry, and one of the biggest questions in the last 5 to 8 years was not about the opportunities and how do you manage HR and all of the admin or the non-clinical aspects. The biggest opportunity was about work-life balance.
Really?
Yeah, when
Wow, that's pretty
most
cool, actually.
well, the most recent experience like that was we had just had a big presentation on all the real opportunity that private practice ownership gives, and we were speaking to a group at a optometry school of students who were in a private practice club. Okay, so seemingly qualified target for us
Right.
trying to appeal to people, why would you be
Right.
there if you weren't interested in owning a practice management? And after this 1 hour presentation with multiple successful optometrists from our group, we opened it up for questions. And the very first question was, how many vacation days do you get if you own your own practice? I kid you not. That was the question.
I love it.
And
That's
so,
amazing.
they were disappointed to hear, well, the first 3 to 5 years, you don't get any.
Or
So,
you can take as many as you want, I guess.
yeah,
If it
yeah,
depends on how much you want to get paid.
yeah, yeah. It matters
That's
depends on what matters to you, right?
isn't that something? Wow, what a transition.
So, in addition to all those other changes going on, we have this change, and so our
Yeah.
business model was predicated on young optometrists who want to own their own business, and they get out. We could help them get it started from scratch, and they would license our brand because it gave them instant credibility.
Mm,
Because the brand was started in 1936
wow.
and had all this longevity to it, ton of top of mind awareness in the consumers, and it just really gave a lot of young ODs a real leg up. And we had developed an entire, what we called our practice management system for success, and it was how to start a practice. And I had it down so that we could predict here's what income you'll have your first year, your third year, and your fifth year. And every year we calculated those numbers and were real predictable because we had a
Mm,
system in place,
hmm.
and which works great as long as you've got young ODs wanting to own their own practice. But when
Yeah.
those dry up, it becomes difficult to grow. And on the other hand, we had the private equity funded groups buying up our largest practices.
Mm,
So it's like we're losing, but we're not able to rebuild and gain.
right.
So something's got to change.
Yeah.
So,
What do you think that has to be? Like, what, if you were, if this was 25 years ago and you were starting today, how do you think you would tackle this?
well, 25 years ago it didn't exist. So, but in 2018, what we said was,
I guess I was
it,
saying, if you had 25 years ahead of you now to do it again,
oh,
how would you tackle this problem? If
well,
you were if you were coming on board today and it was your okay, I got to fix this. What
well,
would
it's the same thing I put on the table to the board for the last 5 years that kept getting rejected, and that is the only option left was to set up a hybrid opportunity for a
mm,
hybrid business model that
mm,
said if you're a young OD and you want to own your own practice, then we've got this option for you. But if you're an OD that wants to just get a job, then we've got a corporate location where we could hire you
oh
and put
right,
you in
right,
that
of course,
position.
right,
And so much like a lot of franchise type of companies, you have corporate owned locations and then
right,
you have franchise locations.
right,
And if we would have introduced a corporate platform where we could go buy practices and
Mm-hmm.
convert them to TSOs, or when some of our largest independents were approached by an outside consolidator saying, we'd like to buy your practice, we could have stepped in and said, well, give us a chance to buy it first. We'll
Right.
match whatever offer. Because the outside people were not interested in maintaining the brand license.
No.
Because
They
private
had their own.
equity,
Yeah.
well, private equity wasn't interested in operating them. They were interested in leveraging the
Right.
arbitrage to sell them later.
Right.
And so that means
Right.
you got to grow EBITDA. You're not going to pay some brand license fee that you don't have to if
No.
you're trying to grow out your EBITDA.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of stripping out, just it's the private equity model.
Yeah.
Strip out expenses, grow that
Interesting.
margin, and then find somebody that'll pay you three times what you paid for it.
Interesting. Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So,
Yeah. And did you get to, well, and during that course of your time there, you also got to sort of flex your marketing muscles too, right? So
yeah, yeah.
you got to first you introduced a new how to help individual doctors market and promote and sell their business, right?
Mm-hmm,
Under the brand license.
mm-hmm.
Did you what kind of opportunities did you offer? What kind of strategies did you kind of delivered in order to help them grow individually? Because I mean, first of all, you have the individual doctor, then they're in a geographic location, and so they're all
Mm-hmm.
very unique to themselves. Did you leverage that, or do you kind of stick very, very sort of corporate brand?
Well, you've got to have value in the corporate brand for consumers to recognize it, and for the young OD who's paying for it to take advantage of that credibility that comes with it.
Mm-hmm.
But that only goes so far. I mean, it doesn't matter what the brand name is, how big it is, or how well known it is, if the sandwiches don't taste good. I mean,
Right.
it's so it's really the thing I loved about it, Heath, was that it really encompasses all aspects of marketing. Most people, certainly most optometrists, think when they hear the word marketing, they think advertising.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
not it. I mean, probably one of the most important parts of marketing is the product itself. If
It's true.
every 100th iPhone didn't work, they wouldn't sell iPhones. I
No.
mean, regardless of the other 99 that worked great,
Yeah.
over time there would not be confidence in the consistency and the quality of the product.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
So the operational elements of the practice and that patient experience had to be something that would be appealing to consumers. So that's one thing. The other thing that was really uh, we we learned, believed, but we really became to understand more fully is the fact that the delivery of eye care services like optometry is very much a local community service. It's not a big box, put it in a shopping center next to Best Buy, Bed Bath and Beyond, and Home Depot.
No.
Where people go, you drive by those centers and they're packed with cars, and you think, oh, what a great place to put a eye doctor's place. Well, those cars are only there about once every 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you go to the local Kroger, those cars are there twice a week, you know? And
Yes,
so you
right.
begin to
Yeah.
understand how locally that the services are.
Yeah.
And so we focused all of our promotional or communication efforts within 3 miles of each location and did not go with some mass market. In Houston, we've got 600 square miles. And if we took a mass market approach, there would be areas that we might be persuasive. And John might say, I'd love to go see that. Where's the one that's close to me? Oh,
Yeah.
well, it's 20 miles away. Well, I'm not going to that.
No. No.
So we focus on it. And I used what I called the Starbucks approach. And that is, if you'll remember when Starbucks became a thing, you never saw advertising for Starbucks.
No.
But you
Never.
knew that no matter where you were at, you knew there's got to be a Starbucks around here somewhere.
Yeah.
And,
A Starbucks
especially,
near me.
yes.
Starbucks near me, I think, was the number one search query on Google for
Yeah.
quite a few years. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, and you can't do that by saying, well, people used to ask me, are you going to grow outside of Texas? I said, there are 30 million people in Texas. Why would we think about that until we get to
Yeah.
1,000 locations in Texas?
Yeah.
Because you can't support an organization that's spread in 8 states nearly as well as you can the density, and have that marketing impact of knowing TSOs are everywhere. You know,
Yeah.
if we were spread out over 8 states, you could have 1,000 locations and people wouldn't know you exist.
No. No.
So,
Exactly.
so those are some marketing approaches that we would take,
Hmm.
and then help them through a delivery of a consistent patient experience through SOPs, standard operating procedures,
Right.
and then focusing promotion locally in 3 Mile area. And then the last thing was the importance of being involved in the community. And
Mm.
I believe that if you'll get involved in the community will get involved in your practice.
Hmm.
And
Very,
and that
very
means
true.
showing up for everything. And if any kid comes in wanting you to sponsor their baseball team, you say yes.
Put
You
your
know,
logo on it.
everywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Did you? I mean, there's one side of the business. So on the medical side, it's optometry, right? But on the
mhm.
other side, it's also product sales because
Yeah.
you sell
Oh,
frames,
absolutely.
right? And that's a
Absolutely.
big aspect of the business as
Oh,
well,
yeah.
a revenue stream. And so then, of course, we have also during all or the last few years, 5 6 years, we've seen a huge growth in online eyeglasses.
Hmm.
You still need your prescription, but now people are getting their prescription and buying online and they're paying a
Hmm.
fraction of the cost. So that must have had an impact as well.
Well, it does. There are really, for purposes of this topic, there are two types of consumers. There are those that use some form of third party payment, most commonly referred to as a vision benefit plan offered
Hmm.
by companies like VSP, IMED. These are
Right.
typically offered through employers. And then you have people that are, in the biz, you call them private pay.
Right.
So they don't use the third party. The online e-commerce typically does not accept third party benefits.
Mm. Right.
So that's why you see places that are a complete pair of glasses for $69,
Right.
and because it's all private pay.
Right.
In private practice offices, typically it's about 2/3 of all the revenue coming through that practice is a third party payment,
Mm. Right.
which has a number of different consequences to it. But one of them has to deal with the product that's sold, the pricing that it's placed at,
Right.
and how it's delivered. And so when we were looking at e-commerce as a strategy to add to as an offering for the membership, we had to reconcile the fact that you can't compete online with a price point that
Right.
would be the same as what you would use in the office.
Right.
And if your
Good
office
point.
price points were different, your consumers in the office would be one, confused, and two, why would they pay me $600 if they can go to my website and buy something for $100?
Exactly. Right.
And so it became difficult to reconcile that.
Yeah, I
And
bet.
um, and so the core problem wasn't what I just described. The core problem was third party payers
Right.
and their intrusion into the relationship between a consumer and their eyewear, or the
Hmm.
consumer and their eye doctor.
Oh,
And
they're
the
pros at that.
yeah, I mean, that's, you hear a lot about pharmacy benefit managers are the culprits in driving up the price of prescription medication. Same thing goes with eye care. The
Right.
vision benefit managers are driving up the cost of eye care and
Yeah.
eyewear. and
Yeah.
taking it. It's not that the doctor makes the money; it's the vision benefit manager that makes the money
Yeah.
at the
Exactly.
expense of the consumer. So but that's just a dynamic that's in the industry, and there is not the collective will among the providers in the profession to change it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's rampant. It's across it's across all areas of healthcare.
It is.
From
Yeah.
conversations that I've had with people, it's a really difficult situation, but it's time for change for that, right?
Well,
I think it's yeah,
I'm hopeful because I maybe I'm conservative, but 60%, 70% of the problems in the healthcare delivery system could be eliminated if you just got rid of third party payment.
yeah. That's what I've been hearing too. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Now, okay, another side of this story is that you're building franchise owners, builders, business owners. So a big part of that is actually you're actually helping create leaders, little independent leaders who are running their own or companies, participating in the bigger picture of the organization. And so, what did you do to help with that? Because that's a big part of this process is that you were actually trying to help them be better leaders themselves, right?
Well, I'm a student of John Maxwell, and John Maxwell's leadership philosophy centers on the fact that leadership is influence, and so helping them become influential, both internally in their offices, in their businesses, but also in their communities,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course in their company that they own,
Mm-hmm.
the one that I worked for. And so that leadership through influence is developed through personal growth. And so then it brings the focus if you're going to get to point C, which is an influential leader in your
Right.
practice, your community, and company, then we've got to start at the beginning, and that's talking about a devotion to personal growth itself. And my role was preaching that, focusing on the ways to be done, and then filling in content in the organizational communication that centered around becoming better. If you want your practice to be better, you have to be better.
That's
And
amazing.
so and
Yeah.
so it's it's a more difficult than just kicking butt and taking names,
That's right.
but it also is more effective
Yeah.
because it's lasting that way.
Yeah.
And the other thing that motivated me was I realized I wasn't just putting a business strategy in place, I was working towards helping people become better people
Yeah.
and better community members, better people in their practice, better relationships with their patients. And so that was the motivation in it. But the ultimate outcome was that they became more influential, better leaders.
I love that. I'm a big John Maxwell fan
Oh yeah.
myself. I've seen him
Yeah.
speak, met him, got a signed book. I think one of my favorite quotes of his is like, leadership is a journey, not a position.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he's a really great influence for me. I've used not worked with him, but worked with his stuff a lot myself. So I mean, that's really incredible that the president of the company is infusing that type of influence, that type of leadership teaching, uh throughout the company. You don't hear of that a lot, but it's really great to know that that's something that when they became part of the organization, that you were actually going to deliver that kind of leadership.
Well, thank you. I went through in 2015. I went through the John Maxwell certification
Wow, that's
program,
cool.
and so that gave me not just the knowledge but the tools to help do that. And the difference is that personal growth is a self-selected endeavor.
Yeah.
So I can't sit somebody down and say grow. You know, I can't set them down and force them to personally grow.
No,
So it would be uh, disingenuous to suggest that everyone responded equally to
no,
this
probably
effort.
not. No.
But I was not looking for everyone. I was looking for a handful of people that could become models
Yeah,
for the others, and through that, knowing that they were having a positive impact in their own circle of influence, but
right.
also showing to the others what this could actually accomplish.
What
So
at that point in your career? So that was what 2015. You said you did that.
2015, I went through the certification
Yeah. What was the what inspired you to do that? What brought you to that point? The motivation for wanting to take that course and develop that.
because about 5 years earlier, I was introduced to Maxwell
Oh
in a
yeah.
meaningful way. I mean, I'd heard about him over the course of time, but wasn't that familiar with his work. But I was really introduced in a meaningful way about 5 years earlier, and started reading books. You know, his 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and a number of other Today Matters, a number of others that really resonated with me. And I thought,
Mm-hmm.
this is something I need personally. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I saw an opportunity to become certified, I jumped on it for my own personal growth,
Mm.
because from other experiences, I realized if you want to learn something, there's nothing like being put in the position of having to teach it. If you learn something well enough to teach it, then you're probably going to get far more out of it than
Right.
any student that you're teaching.
Right.
And so I did it for that purpose. Not a lot of people do it to make a living out of it,
Right.
to take the materials and use it, kind of like a coaching speaker franchise program.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I just did it for the personal growth out of it, and then felt like it was meaningful enough to me that I wanted to share it. And
Yeah.
I saw the importance of how it could positively influence the organization I was with. And so I felt
Mm-hmm.
like might as well plant this where I'm in my own garden, right?
That's
So,
right. Yeah. I mean, people must have responded well to
oh,
that. I mean,
oh
that's
yeah.
yeah.
And a lot of my corporate team who had never heard of John Maxwell,
Right.
we started a book club
Right.
where we started reading, and they're on their own personal growth. And most of
Sure.
them,
Everybody
most
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
most people. If
Yeah.
you walk up to people at the grocery store and tell me about your personal growth plan, they'll look at you like you're crazy, and you probably would be for asking them in the grocery store.
Yeah,
But the
exactly.
point is that
Read the
most
room,
people,
dude.
yeah, most of them. The point is that most people don't sit down and think about a personal
Yeah.
growth plan,
No.
and until someone sits down and says, "Let's do this together," because there's real value in it, and shows you the importance of it, then you probably aren't going to. So,
Well, often personal growth isn't necessary. It's not planned because it comes from life experiences, right? Where
mhm.
you are confronted with difficult situations and that's where growth happens because it's super uncomfortable and it puts it in a place of like where you either grow or you crumble to the ground. And I think a lot of that has to do with it. When people make conscious decisions to personally grow, it means that they're willing to look at themselves and examine themselves and look for where they could use some growth because that's
Mhm.
really a big part of that, isn't it?
The intentionality is what separates growth through circumstance and growth by model. And
Yeah.
it'd be like us deciding we are taking a 1 week vacation, but just get in the car and start driving.
Right.
And versus, no, we're going to stay here the first night, there the
Yeah.
second night, and
Yeah.
we'll get a lot more out of this 1 week vacation than if we just start driving.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So is there what are the plans ahead? Is there you have something in you have a vision in mind for yourself now?
I do. First of all, I think that there is a real opportunity to share a lot of what we've been talking about on a broader level of small business.
Mhm.
John Maxwell has a real reach into kind of corporate America because of his position and his success in writing. But the guy who just bought the Ace Hardware store probably hasn't been exposed to a lot of that. And so I
That's a
think
good
that there's an
point.
opportunity for a small business focus on these types of topics. In addition, imbuing those with faith and a message of the importance of faith in our lives. And so as we develop as spiritual people, then that also makes for a richer experience in business with customers and employees. And emboldening people, not, that's empowering is a better word, with
Right.
the confidence of expressing that faith. You know, there's for too long it's felt like, well, I can't talk about my faith at work because that's not appropriate.
Hmm.
And I'm saying that not only is it appropriate, but it'll open up an entirely new experience that is richer in that experience for both your employees, yourself, and your customers.
Hmm.
And I'm not talking about a particular denomination or even
No.
a particular, I'm just talking about living your life through faith versus living your life in fear, because those are the two opposites of each other.
Yeah.
And by living with a commitment of faith and belief, you're that is a mindset, and that will open you up to examining yourself
Yeah.
and personal growth. So that I've got a number of different modalities I want to deliver that message through, including a weekend seminar and workshop structures that I really feel called to explore whether or not this is something that could be available through churches.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of, most churches don't offer a leadership program,
No.
but I think that there's a real opportunity that that church and the community it's in would benefit from such a program.
Well, how many people who maybe show up every week own a business and
Yeah,
or run a business or
that's
operate a
right.
business, whatever, they have some sort
Yeah,
of connection to
health.
business, and to kind of
Yeah,
infuse that through other directions would be certainly
yeah.
beneficial. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's a good point you bring up about faith and how we have it's not about selling your faith, it's about sharing it
Hmm.
and allowing others to share theirs as well, right? Then you're right, they don't have to, they're not, it's not that they have to be the same, it's just that there's a there's a faith is one of the highest vibrations we have as an
Hmm.
energy, as a along with love and gratitude and all those things like you talked
Hmm.
about, being positive, um creative, and as opposed to destructive aspects of
Hmm.
emotions and feelings. So yeah, it ties in, and personal growth is all about finding that part of ourselves, because we tend to be so stuck in survival, which doesn't allow for us to be free and allow us to be creative and be expressive and all that. So yeah,
So
I
so much of our lives tend to be limited, self-limited through fear.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
fear is something that's born in the imagination of
Yeah.
something that doesn't exist yet, but we don't make decisions for our own best interest out of imagining how it could be bad.
Right.
And we control that imagination.
Mm-hmm.
So if we
Yeah.
can help people understand how you can imagine that it's good and the good that it can create in you, then jump, make that decision,
Yeah.
pursue it because of what it can do. And we both know just from being around and having experiences that there's no such thing as a bad decision. There are decisions that you can make them good just by continuing to make decisions.
Right.
And you just pursue that. But the challenge is making the first decision,
Right.
getting
Exactly.
started, getting
I think
started.
there's another Maxwell quote. I think it's like 10%. What was it? I think I wrote down. 10% of what happens is not as important as the 90% at the time of how I react.
Yeah.
Something similar to that. And I think what you were just saying is living in faith or living in fear. Where would you rather be, right? And being in a position to take a leap of faith, as a really popular phrase is really, that's where you're in that position to be able to do that. So yeah, totally agree.
Another example, think of how many, and I'll bet you've had these experiences too. Think of how many times in your life something happened that you couldn't control, you weren't in control of, and
No.
it was not a good thing. It was a bad thing. I lost a job. My wife left me. My husband cheated on me. Things that weren't in your control. And at the time that you experience them, all your mind is consumed with is fear
Yeah.
as to what this is going to do. Years later, you look back and go, that was turns out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me. Had that not happened, I wouldn't have done this and that.
Yeah,
And that's a
exactly.
real life experience. And unfortunately, though, the next time something bad happens, we start all over again.
All
Oh my
over
God,
again.
here we come. So anyway,
Well, that's exciting. I think there's a lot of room for improvement out there, and I think that you got some great skills to share with people. So I'm glad you're pursuing that, and I'm
thank you.
excited to for you and your future. And how can people reach you if they want to catch up with you and find out more or connect with you?
Well, the best way right now is through my LinkedIn profile, and you just search my name, John D. Marvin, and you'll find me there. And if you'll write me, I'll get on a phone call with you, or we'll start a pen pal relationship, however you want to continue. But I'm more than happy to talk to anyone that has an interest in learning more or talking more. I certainly will learn more, and so I would welcome that opportunity.
Excellent. Well, John, thank you so much for your time with me today. I've really enjoyed meeting you, getting to know you, and learning about your career. It's been fascinating, and I'm sure listeners will have a lot to take away from this. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Heath. It was a real privilege to be with you.
Okay, that closes this episode with John Marvin. What an awesome conversation. Hey, I really enjoyed that. John shared some powerful lessons on leadership, personal growth, of course, and navigating change in this shifting healthcare environment that a lot of you are in. We got into everything from how consumer behavior is evolving to the impact of e-commerce and the importance of local marketing, which never seems to change. And of course, some great quotes from John Maxwell. Leadership is influence, and leadership is a journey, not a position. So if you're building a business, leading a team, or just working on yourself, there is a lot to take away here. So if you like this episode, go ahead, please subscribe, leave us a review if you want, and share it with someone who you think might enjoy it too. So thank you for listening. Stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.